So it's time for another DVD and Blu-ray update. It hasn't been that long since the last one, but well, the last video with the last series of updates, they were 7 videos, 7 parts. And like I said in the first one, I filmed them all at the same time and uploaded them over the course of a couple of weeks. So while the last part was uploaded about a week ago, as of filming this, I think it's been about a month since I filmed those. Even then, I've seen quite a bit of stuff in this past month. Some of this stuff I guess I would have seen a little bit earlier, but most of this is from the last month. So I've been busy watching stuff. I've tried not to waste too much time. Just every waking hour I have, I try to, whenever I can, I try to watch stuff, and I've managed to watch quite a lot of stuff this month. So it's gonna be a 2-part video, or a 2-part update. This first part is going to consist of largely indicator Blu-rays. We have a few box sets and a few singular or whatever releases, and I'm gonna start with a few other sort of boutique label Blu-rays, and in the second part we will talk about a bunch of random stuff, but a lot of new releases, I guess, recent movies on Blu-ray. So I think this might take a while. I'm not really gonna rush it. It's probably gonna be quite long, these 2 videos, but I guess that's fine. So let's start with, I mean, we have one from Second Sight and then one from Arrow, so I think we might as well start with those. So this one, The Changeling, is a movie that had been wanting to see for a number of years, and I had always heard that it was a really scary movie. That's basically what I knew about this. It's definitely a gap in my horror knowledge, but I've seen it now, and I really liked it a lot. It is scary, but it doesn't do what modern movies do. I'm not sure when they started doing that to the extent that they're doing now. Jump scaring the audience, which I think is a cheap trick, to be honest. It can work well, but I mean, it's cliched to say, but I think they're doing it too much. With something like this, if this was done today, they would have certainly used thrown many more jump scares at the audience. There are a few, but they're not really overly they're not obvious. I mean, they all make sense, and they're not necessarily trying to scare the audience in that way. It's more trying to build the atmosphere and delivering more sort of realistic plot twists, which might be unsettling and scary, for the most part anyway. And it really does it well. I love the location of this attic, where it's revealed throughout what's happened. So I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, but something has happened in this attic, in this house, and the way they have builded to that scene and everything surrounding that attic, it really makes it feel very creepy and very unsettling. So overall, a really good film that I liked quite a bit, and definitely a good, nice looking, sturdy release from Second Sight. Then the Arrow release, Arrow Academy released the Mohsen Makhmalbaf poetic trilogy, containing Gabe, The Silence, and The Gardener. And I wasn't sure if this poetic trilogy was something that Mohsen Makhmalbaf himself has called these films, or if that's just something they call the box set. But there is a very lengthy, 1 hour long actually interview in English, so he does speak good English, with Mohsen Makhmalbaf, recorded exclusively for this release, where he talks about this very much being an intentionally made trilogy. Although the Gabe and The Silence were made quite a bit before The Gardener, I believe. Gabe, I guess probably the main film, or the best one out of these, and that's where the picture comes from. It is an interesting film. It's not entirely, I mean, I did listen to the commentary, and a few more things became clearer then. It's definitely one that you need to get into a certain frame of mind to watch. It doesn't take a certainly not a conventional approach from a Western perspective in terms of the storytelling. But from what I've seen of Iranian film, they usually experiment with certain things. Makhmalbaf has done that before, and Kiarostami has done that. Yeah, it's definitely a country that I'm very interested in terms of foreign film. There are certain obvious countries like Japan or France, but Iran is a very interesting country for film. I did like Gabe, even though there's a lot of metaphors going on. Some of them I like, some of them I'm not really sure what to make of. And it works on different layers too, in a way that I'm not sure if it makes sense in a way that I like. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but I'm not sure if it's in a way that is good or if it's just confusing. But anyway, the silence was much more easier to watch, but a very sort of minimal film, which it was quite good. I liked some scenes. The Gardener I did not like. It's a documentary actually about the Baha'i religion, which was an interesting subject, but I honestly didn't really care for their approach. He made that film with his son. Yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I appreciate the film. I don't dislike it, but it's not one that I felt that enthusiastic about. I will say that since they appear to have a pretty good collaboration, Arrow and Mohsen Makhmalbaf, with that interview and all, and with the very nice presentation of these films, I do hope that they release more of his films. In fact, on the interview, they discuss another trilogy of his, which I think they referred to as the cinematic trilogy, containing A Moment of Innocence and a couple other ones, and they look really good, those films. And since they released the poetic trilogy, maybe they could release the cinematic or the cinema trilogy or whatever. That would be really cool if they could do that, because those movies look even better than these. Okay, so now we have a few. I actually have Kandahar, another Makhmalbaf movie on DVD, a Swedish DVD, but I haven't seen it yet. Anyway, now we have, I actually do have one release from a company called Cult Films, and after that we have a few Eureka titles, and then after that a bunch of indicator stuff. So the Battle of Algiers, Cult Films, they apparently released this before, but they re-released it with a new restoration and a new featurette on the restoration. Other than that, I think it's the same. And if I'm not mistaken, the Blu-ray.com reviewer weren't. I don't know. I feel like maybe the old release of this movie from Cult Films had a higher rating for picture quality. I could be wrong, but I think some people had some problems with the picture quality for the new release. But I still feel like if Cult Films decide to upgrade their existing release, then why should I not buy that one? I feel like realistically they would improve on their older release, I guess. So I bought the new one. I haven't seen it, but I've always heard good things about it, and I think it's one that I will like. So now we'll move on to the Eureka Blu-rays. I think we have 4 of them, or 5 perhaps, no, 4. Anyway, this one, first of all, Legend of the Mountain, a film by King who also made a film called A Touch of Zen, also released by Eureka. I haven't seen either of them. I mean, they're 3-hour films, martial arts films, or this one might be more of a drama. I'm not sure. Well, it says wuxia. I never knew how to pronounce that, but commonly associated with wuxia. It's also an epic fantasy horror. Okay, well, it sounds very good, and I wanted to buy this now. I bought this a while ago, but I didn't want to miss out on the slipcover, which normally is a thing that I really couldn't care less about. But this slipcover just looks so nice, and I have the other release with the slip, and I figured they would look nice together. But I do kind of scratch my head a little bit when I watch videos of people's hauls or on the hunts, whatever, and they find the movie they're looking for, but there's no slip, so they don't buy it. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You have the movie right there. Are we collecting paper, or are we collecting movies? I don't really fully understand the extreme need to have every single release with a paper around it. But certain movies do look very nice with it. But I think you'll be a much happier collector if you just try to let go of that. Anyway, it's just a stress element. It's not really bringing you any satisfaction, or well, I guess it is when you find the slip, but it's just more of an obsessive thing. I think people should try to. I shouldn't tell people what to do, but I just think it's unnecessary to. Anyway, I didn't mean to turn that into a rant on slipcovers, but anyway, okay. Let's move on to the other ones. A New Leaf, a film by Elaine May, who's directed a few films. Her last one was a big flop. In fact, I have it down here. I don't know exactly where it is, but she directed Ishtar, which I don't think she's done anything since then, and I don't know if the reason for that is because Ishtar was such a big flop, which I think it was. I mean, I know that people hated the movie, but before that she made a few other movies, including this one with Walter Matthau. Anyway, and I thought that I would like it much more than I did. Thinking back on it, it sort of reminds me a little bit of someone like Jacques Tati, very minimal comedy that is gonna maybe demand a second or a third viewing. I feel like this one, I just didn't really fully understand the movie, not the subject matter or whatever, but just the comedy of it. I didn't really understand the sense of humor. There were a few funny scenes that I liked, but overall I was really bored watching this, and I wasn't really enjoying it very much. So I feel like maybe some of those, some of that humor will do better on a second viewing, perhaps, because maybe I was expecting something slightly different. But I do like Walter Matthau, although I thought he was kind of annoying in this film, to be honest. I liked Elaine May's performance more. This release unfortunately doesn't really have any extras. Otherwise I would have liked to hear Elaine May talking about the film. The reason why I bought that now is because I've seen her on a few shows recently. She was on Woody Allen's Amazon show, actually. And I didn't really know who she was then, but I liked her. And then I looked her up later and realized that she's a director, or she was. And then more recently than that, I also saw her on Phil Rosenthal's show on Netflix, Somebody Feed Phil, which is a food travel show, and she just appeared in I think in the New York episode. So I was reminded of her again when I saw that, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna buy one of her movies. Anyway, unfortunately I wasn't a big fan of it, but I'm gonna return to it eventually, I'm sure. Then I bought Two Lane Blacktop, which, this is a road movie. It's a movie about, drifters in the early 70s. I suppose a fairly transitional period still in the early 70s, or at least the 60s was. I guess there's always disillusioned youth, but this one I guess captures that. Just a road movie, going from place to place, not really doing much, nothing much happening, not a lot of dialogue, which was something I missed from this movie. Normally I love road movies. I love that sense of freedom of going from place to place, not really having a special plan, or even if you do have a plan, a place you have to go, it's usually really cool to see the journey. With this one though, I wasn't really feeling that. I feel like it's a movie I should like a lot more than I did, and I guess I liked it on some level, but I didn't know anything about the character. When the movie ended, I just felt like I knew nothing about the characters, and maybe that was the point. but I didn't like that, and I wanted more dialogue from them. I wanted more interesting dialogue from them. But what you have is mainly just them going from place to place, not really much happening at all. And that's not normally something that which would turn me off or whatever from watching a film. But I don't know, I wanted more from it. But there are a couple of scenes that I keep thinking about, and I would like to revisit that movie as well. You know, it's always a little bit unfortunate when that happens, when you've been looking forward to a film, you don't like it as much as you thought you would, but you know, it's not a big deal. It's always interesting to see what a film has to offer. Then I bought this, which is the last Eureka release, and after this we have a bunch of Indicator releases. So obviously, as a big Jackie Chan fan, I had to buy the Police Story 1 and 2 Blu-ray limited edition. They previously released Drunken Master on Blu-ray, but I haven't bought that, probably because it's not limited. I didn't feel the need to buy it immediately. And I've seen the film before, and I'm gonna pick that up eventually. And then, you know, they also have City Hunter. I think that's already released actually, or it's coming out soon. And then Project A 1 and 2, which I'm really looking forward to, is also coming out. So they are really releasing a lot of Jackie Chan, and seem to be focusing on martial arts in general, which is really nice to see. And yeah, I've been a really big fan of Jackie Chan ever since I rented movies on DVD before, you know, well, no, I think on VHS. Before I had a DVD player, we would rent movies on VHS, me and my friends sometimes, and we often rented or sometimes rented Jackie Chan movies because we were all fans of his, and this was when I was 10, you know. So I've followed him for the better part of my movie watching life, you know. And I really, I mean, I think he's phenomenal. These are great, obviously. And I definitely had to upgrade. I will admit that I never really got too into the whole dubbing versus the Cantonese audio versus. I mean, usually, I guess. I mean, I know for Italian films they didn't really bother about capturing audio on set, and so they would cast people from all kinds of countries because they were gonna dub them later anyway, and so maybe a similar situation was true in Hong Kong. I'm not quite sure. So, but I never really knew if there are original audio available for his older movies, or if the English dubbing is the preferred, what people prefer, or if the Cantonese dubbing. And then I guess there's Mandarin dubbing as well, but they speak Cantonese in Hong Kong, I think. So I never really knew what audio to go with, and stuff like that. But I do have my DVDs that I thought that I would compare this with, and I thought that I would finally do some homework in terms of that, and look into that and see exactly what people are saying about the dubbings and about the different audio tracks, because it seemed like a bit of a jungle for me before, and I just wanted to enjoy his movies. But now with these releases, they've really put all the best, or that they've given you a bunch of different options, and so I'm gonna look into the different options and sort of switch back and forth from my DVDs as well to see what the differences are. So that should be kind of fun, but I just need to find the right time to do that. Now we have the Indicator Blu-rays. I'll just start with the separate releases. We have 6 separate releases and 3 box sets, and then like a bonus box set at the end, which I've already talked about, so it's not really part of the update, but I just wanted to mention a few brief thoughts. This first one I haven't seen yet, the China Syndrome. I love this cast. I mean, Jack Lemmon, Jane Fonda, Michael Douglas, people I like very much, so I am looking forward to eventually seeing that. Then we have a movie called Missing, which I was really looking forward to. It's with Jack Lemmon as well as Sissy Spacek, and it's about Jack Lemmon plays a father whose son has gone missing during a coup, however you pronounce it. And I feel ashamed of myself, but I don't really know what country. It's I guess in South America, and he goes missing, and Jack Lemmon goes down to look for him, and Sissy Spacek is his son's I don't know, wife or girlfriend, and she is already down there, and so they look for him together. Honestly, this to me was a bit of it dragged on a bit. Didn't really have too many interesting things to offer. I was expecting to like it more than I did. Unfortunately, I've said that a few times in this video, but I just thought it was okay, honestly. But you know, next one is Little Murders, which I didn't really know what to expect from this. It's from 1971. Directed by Alan Arkin, actually, and he's in the movie too as a small role, but it stars Elliot Gould, and it's about, it's based on a play by Jules Feiffer, and it's about the disillusionment that was felt by a lot of Americans after the John F. Kennedy assassination and the dramatic change that the 60s brought on, and I guess that had an incredible impact on people. And I believe in the interview, this is a great release. It has interviews with Alan Arkin and Elliot Gould and Jules Feiffer from this year, recorded for this release. And I believe Jules Feiffer talked about how this was influenced, inspired by those events, and about the disillusionment that a lot of people, especially young people, I guess, felt. And I like that idea, and I love the release because of all the bonus features, and it's a nice part of film history, a film that I think a lot of people haven't seen, and it's nice hearing about it. It's nice hearing about the inspirations for the film and stuff like that. So it's one that I appreciate a lot, and a Blu-ray release that I like a lot, but it's not a movie that I enjoyed watching. It's a movie that, even though I understand what inspired it, it's not one that I enjoyed, but it's one that I very much appreciate. And there are certainly funny scenes in this. There's a really good scene with Donald Sutherland, which was funny. It is one to revisit for sure. A good film, but not one that I enjoyed. This one was odd. Oleanna, with William H. Macy and Deborah Eisenstadt. They actually recorded interviews for this Blu-ray as well, so another really good release. And a film that I'd never heard of before. It's this one was based on a play, actually, and this one was also based on a play, but this one is much more obvious that it was based on a play. It's a very quiet, minimal film in terms of set and act. I mean, the only actors are the two of them, and then there are extras, but there are no significant actors at all besides the two of them. And it's not really one you can talk too much about, because in the second act something happens which I was not expecting, and it confused me. I wasn't sure if I understood it correctly at first. Like, is this really what's going on? Why is this happening? So Act 1 brought this on, but nothing really happened in Act 1 which would justify this. And I guess that's what it's about. And if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to walk this fine line between not spoiling it for people who haven't seen it, while still being clear about what I'm talking about for the people who have seen it. So hopefully I'm doing a good job. But yeah, what happens in Act 2? I'm having a hard time making. I mean, I can make sense of it, but I'm having a hard time understanding where he's coming from. The writer, David Mamet. Anyway, It's an interesting film. I liked listening to the interviews about the film, although I would have liked an interview with him. Then there's a shocking part in Act 3, but I think the first act was the act that I liked the most, and I can tell you about the first act. William H. Macy plays a professor, and Deborah Eisenstadt, she is a student of his who she's having trouble understanding his lessons or his classes. She feels stupid for not understanding what he's teaching, and I'm not sure if she confronts him. I mean, she questions him about this. Confront is the wrong word. She, after school has ended, she goes to his classroom or to his office, and she wants to talk to him about her difficulties, and he agrees to help her, and that's Act 1. And I thought that was going to be the whole film, that the whole film was going to take place in real time that evening, but it does skip forward a couple times, and like I said, the second act was a bit jarring almost, or a bit it definitely surprised me. But I've thought about this. I really cannot decide if I like the film or not. I liked watching it, but I don't know if I like the film. I don't know, but it's one to think about for sure. One of those films that it's gonna spark a conversation, and it's gonna lead to more interesting things than what the film necessarily is on its own, if that makes sense. Anyway, the next one is I'm trying to, with Indicator, they have become the company that I pay the most attention to. I've always been excited. It's been my mini Christmas each month to hear the announcements from Arrow and Criterion to some extent, although not as much. But Arrow certainly, and Eureka whenever they have announcements, and now Indicator, they have really taken the top spot for me in terms of Blu-ray distributors, and I love what movies they focus on. Lesser seen films, not necessarily major classics, but rather films that you haven't really heard of before, or at least I haven't heard of a lot of these, and that's great. And I don't really care about the numbered spines, but because they are a company that I'm just so fascinated with, and that I respect so much, it's the only company that I know of where I actually am trying to get all releases. So I'm trying to go back and buy the old releases, but there's like 50 releases that I don't have. So I'm trying to buy all the new ones anyway, and then whenever I have the money, to go back and buy a few more. And this is one that I went back and bought, an older release. It's called Housekeeping, directed by Bill Forsyth. Really good. I like films set. I thought that this was filmed. I thought the film was Canadian because it looked like it was filmed in Canada, and I think it is, but it's not a Canadian film. I think Bill Forsyth, he filmed it up there, or like on the border, but I think he's American, or at least it's an American film. But it takes place in this kind of community that I really like the look of, and there's a scene where, as you can see on the cover, they have a flood, and that's really well done, and I love things like that. I love the scenery, and the actors were good. It's a movie that I really liked, and I thought that I would, but I did like it very much. And Bill Forsyth, he directed he's done a few movies, but he directed a film called Local Hero, which I saw somewhere that I happened to see somebody mention that Mark Kermode, however you pronounce his name, had posted on Twitter that he had recorded an audio commentary with Bill Forsyth for Local Hero for an upcoming Blu-ray release. So I guess it's likely that Indicator is gonna release Local Hero. If not them, then another company. So I'm looking forward to that. Okay, this next movie was amazing. The Passenger by Antonioni. I've seen one film of his before, Blow Up, which I didn't get. It's been a few years, but I didn't get it. This film I understood, but this is a simpler film, for me anyway, to understand than Blow Up, and a more enjoyable film too. At least that's what I feel now. This one was really good. I like this a lot. I mean, there are a few moments where you need to adjust your, okay, where in the story are we now? But it's not that difficult, and after a while you get the hang of it. I really love the way they filmed it, the way they have mixed past and present, and the way it's a film about Jack Nicholson switching identities with another man. And that's just it's really well done, the way they've done it. And the ending, the last shot, was just incredible, both from a technical standpoint, but also I mean, anyway, it's just an amazing scene and an amazing film too, and an amazing release. We have 3 commentaries, I think. One with Jack Nicholson, which I actually listened to while I was doing some other stuff, and got some interviews, and yeah, really good film. One of those films that I loved so much that it makes me wanna buy more films from that director. So there's a couple of films from Antonioni on Blu-ray that I want to get. Okay, we have a few box sets, like I said. I picked up the 5 Tall Tales, Bud Bedicker and Randolph Scott at Columbia, so it has these films, as you can see here, 1957 to 1960. 5 films that are very short, very concise, and very, very confident, kind of typical classic westerns, or at least I'm not a western expert, but it is a genre that I'm getting more and more into with each film I see, and certainly with these I really want to watch more westerns when I watch these, and to me they feel that way, very confident westerns. Bud Bedicker knows what he's doing in the genre, and he knows he's not trying to create a new genre of western, which they did with the spaghetti western in the 60s, but he's just trying to make really good solid westerns that don't take too much time. I mean, they're all very, very short. As you can see here, they average less than 80 minutes, so there's no filler material, no fluff. It's all all very confident western storytelling, and they're all really good. Not sure which one my favorite was, but maybe Ride Lonesome. That was really good. Comanche Station was good. They're all good, and a phenomenal box set. I mean, just aesthetically, the box sets themselves, they're just beautiful. And even if I'm not all that interested in the films, I want to get the box sets because they look so good, and also because whatever films they release, they always do them justice. And even if I don't love them, I always appreciate them as part of film history, and as part of this mission to preserve films on Blu-ray. And there's always very good extras, obviously. I will show a DVD here, because there's another western with Randolph Scott by Bud Bedicker that I guess this is from Columbia, and they have a deal, I believe. Indicator has a deal with Columbia, so a lot of the films are from Columbia. This one, however, was owned by another studio, Paramount, perhaps. This one they did before any of these, I think, and so I just bought the DVD. Again with Randolph Scott, as well as Lee Marvin, who I just love Lee Marvin, and this is a really good movie, maybe even better than these, and a good documentary on here as well, commentary even, which I haven't listened to, but yeah, and again a short film, 75 minutes, so if you like these, then I recommend watching this as well, because this is just as good, if not better. So yeah, phenomenal release. Now let's talk about Hammer. I might have, well, bought a few Hammer films from Indicator. So I bought the Hammer box sets, obviously, as you can see. This is a bit overwhelming. Where do I start? I don't really want to talk about all films one by one. I don't really think I have time for that. But when they first announced this, when I saw this box set, I'm not a fan of old horror, or I haven't been. Old meaning 60s and earlier, or at least 50s and earlier. Well, probably 60s, because I guess before violence, before gore, before they could do much more of those things, I guess I just there hasn't been enough that has drawn my attention to old movies, unfortunately. But you know, I'm always trying to trying to dig into genres that I don't know as much about, and trying to expand my my tastes, whatever. But when I saw this box set from Indicator, this was before I had become such as enthusiastic about this company as I am now. But still, when I saw this box set, it just wasn't anything that I wanted to get, like at all. And with this one, this was even less interesting to me. It just didn't seem like anything that I wanted to see. It wasn't my kind of films. But you know, then something changed, and for some reason I just felt like seeing them, and so I bought these two from Savi in the same order, and I'm glad I did. I am really glad I did. I will say that these movies, these are much better. I've seen them all. These Maniac I thought was quite good, although then the ending was so convoluted and confusing. But overall, I mean, I enjoyed Maniac. The Gorgon is more of a... I mean, Hammer is known for their films with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. I know that, and you know, the Dracula films and Frankenstein films, whatever. But these aren't really, though. This is not really gothic horror or monster films. This is other kinds of films, with an exception of these two, the Gorgon and the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. And this one is the worst one from all these sets, I would have to say. I didn't really like this. The Gorgon is better, but it's not really... It's a genre that I haven't explored too much, so I don't know enough about it. I feel like if I had seen more films from that genre, I would have liked it more. It's just not... It wasn't my favorite, really. I would say that Fanatic was probably my favorite from this box set. I really liked Fanatic. But overall, the second box set, I like these films a whole lot more on the whole. Like The Snorkel was fun. I liked the way it's framed. The ending and the beginning are quite similar, and I like that film. Full Treatment is quite good, but it's a bit long, and it goes into a few territories that aren't maybe necessary. These two, however, are amazing. Never Take Sweets from a Stranger. Really disturbing film. Really disturbing ending. And about a subject matter that is controversial. But it's a very well made film. But Cash on Demand is my favorite from this set. This was so good. Peter Cushing sort of takes on this almost, as they talk about in the extras, this almost plays a variation of Ebenezer Scrooge from A Christmas Carol. It's about a bank robbery. He's this bank director, and a very well-dressed, well-spoken man comes in, and it turns out that he's robbing the bank. Although you wouldn't really know it if you saw the film with the sound off. You would not really know that he was... I mean, you wouldn't know at all that it was a heist film until way into the movie, you know. So it's all about the dialogue, and the dialogue is so good. It's so captivating, and yeah, this one was just amazing. Now this third box set takes a different approach. Blood and Terror. These all take place around, I guess, around World War II, or around that time. One is the camp on Blood Island is, I think, in Japan, in a prisoner of war camp. Yesterday's Enemy, I think, is in Burma. I don't know exactly when that would have taken place. Stranglers of Bombay. I thought that I would like these more than I did. For some reason, I just thought that these would really be for me. But after having enjoyed the second box set so much, this was a bit of a disappointment for me. I'm still watching Terror of the Tongs, which, well, by today's political correctness, it's horrible. I mean, people would have a few problems with this film today. Even for a film from the 60s or whenever it is, 61, it's like a bit questionable almost. Well, maybe that's going a bit far, but it's not the most tasteful film. And I've only seen half of it, and I had to pause it because I wasn't really enjoying it. Sometimes you're in the mood for a certain genre, sometimes you're not in the mood for that genre. I guess that can influence your reviews of films, but for the most part, even if I'm not in the mood for a film, if the film is good, I'll enjoy it to some extent. And these films are quite good. I think Yesterday's Enemy was my favorite, but they weren't as captivating as I would have expected them to be, or I wasn't as captivated by them as I would have expected myself to be. But even saying that, I think it's a great set, and I think it would be very I think it would be great if they released a Volume 4 set, because there's a lot of Hammer films that I'd like to see. Then they have the William Castle set coming out, which I have pre-ordered, along with Night of the Demon. They're coming out in October, which is an incredible month. And I have a few other ones as well, which I have ordered. I haven't seen them all, and they haven't arrived, all of them, so I'm gonna have to return to a few of them. I will talk about this one briefly. Like I said, I had one that wasn't really part of the update, but I've actually shown this a couple times before. I showed it when I bought it, and then I talked about it again after I had bought the other two Ray Harryhausen box sets. I showed this again, not really realizing that I had already shown it, and now I'm showing it a third time. But I'm doing that because I've seen the movies. I had seen these two before. The first two I rewatched, and then watched the third one for the first time, and I enjoyed them so much that I just wanted to just quickly praise the films, just say how good they are and how sad it is that we only have one Ray Harryhausen. I would have loved to have like a whole genre of these films, but there's only really a few, as far as I know. The first one is very good. The second one is, for me, just as good as the first one. The third one, I wasn't expecting it to be as good, and it's not, but it was much better than I thought it was going to be. It's actually really not bad at all. It's very enjoyable. It's a little bit more uneven. There's a few bad green screens. The acting, the character of Sinbad is much weaker for me. It's not really about the character of Sinbad as much as the two ones are about him. At least for me, anyway. He doesn't seem to have the same importance as he does in the first two. But so a few things considered, or whatever, it's still a really fun movie. And the last one it's quite long too. It's the longest one, almost 2 hours. But to me, I was expecting it fully expecting it to feel way too long. But it didn't. To me, it was fun all the way through. I was never bored. I just had a really good time. So I just wanted to quickly say that. So yeah, some really good indicator releases for this one and other stuff, and I am looking forward to whatever else Indicator has coming out. I hope that they stick around for many years and release movies every month like they have been doing, because obviously there's a lot of films that need releases, and it's always nice to let these companies introduce you to movies that you would never have seen before, and that's probably why I love Indicator so much. But also it's clear that they love film too. They're not just putting out cheap, quick releases to make money, but they do it because they love. I mean, who would release box sets like these? Look, you know, with this quality, tracking down as many surviving crew members as they can find, just to have some account of the production. I mean, I feel like they really love what they're doing, and they're film fans who are introducing films to other film fans, and I love it. So anyway, I guess that's it for this video. Next part will be a lot of random stuff, really, like I said, but quite a few new Blu-rays. Yeah, so I'll see you in the second part, and thank you for watching.